We're live.
There you go.
Thankfully, we have wonderful, talented reference librarians who edit things for me. Okay. Hello, we're at the Henry Carter Hall Library. This is our project called The Stories That Veterans Tell. It's Thursday, the 28th of October, 2021. And today I have the opportunity to interview Joe Rollo. Now I have to confess, Joe Rollo is my much younger brother, and so if we get into a little family thing here, you'll understand. But Joe is a veteran of the Navy, and I think there's a family connection to that.
Yes, our father was a Navy veteran of World War II, and was in the service at the beginning of it, through Pearl Harbor, through the whole deal, and retired in 62. Yeah,
Yes.
62 from the Navy. So we spent a lot of time associated with the Navy,
Right.
and I decided to enlist.
That might have had something to do with your date of birth. In the lottery.
Oh, yeah, the only thing I've ever won in the lottery is the low ticket number. So I had done 2 years in a community college, and then I procrastinate quite often. And I was accepted at Central, but not until the spring semester of 71, excuse me. And so they were knocking on my door, so I decided, well, let me enlist in the Navy, because I always had that in the back of my mind also. So I enlisted in the Navy, and it's been a benefit all my life. In my career, I've used I was an electrician's mate, EM, when I was in the Navy, and I've used that skill, my electrical knowledge, throughout my entire engineering life. Once I being mechanical, but having the electrical was so good.
Foundational,
I just incorporated both into the product. It was vibration test equipment is what we produced, and it both major components, electrical and electronic and mechanical. So that was very good. I always call upon those skills.
Right.
So it's done well for me. I gotta say it was a good time spent.
Right. Now, you at that time, a lot, you did your basic training in the Great Lakes. In the winter.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yes, so I went in November, beginning of November, to Great Lakes. We had, and if anybody's been up on the Great Lakes, it's right below Wisconsin, about 12 miles south of Wisconsin. So we're pretty much up in Illinois on the lake, and we had wind chill factors of 57 below.
Oh, no.
It was cold.
Oh. And what were you expected to be doing when?
Oh, anything and everything.
Okay.
So yeah, it was an eye opener, because that wind came off that lake and it hurt.
Oh, it hurt.
That was pretty bad, and some of the barracks we had there was snow inside.
Oh,
so,
my goodness.
Yeah. But for the most part, it was survivable.
Do you remember anyone you went through basic with?
I haven't been in touch with, but yeah, no, I remember a bunch of guys.
Okay.
It was a pretty interesting experience. We had a first class that was our company commander, our drill instructor, and he had a group of recruits that were all from Minnesota before us.
Really?
Yeah, it was a Navy promotion that they had, and he, you have these competitions weekly, and you gather flags for the best group, and and they did quite well, and he was very proud of that. And but we decided, I don't know, as a group that we could do this too, and we had a very interesting mixed group. We had out of the 80 people, we had probably 55 with at least some college, all high school, obviously,
Yeah.
and then college. All, potentially going to get drafted.
Yes.
So chose to come in the Navy. And then there was like 20, 25 more inner city groups, people. And so we had a mixed group, but we had a pretty, good core.
Yeah.
And we went out and we won everything.
Oh.
So we were the most highly decorated. I don't know if anybody's ever beat us, because I don't think unless they put more competition in there. And so we did this guy it made his, it helped make his career.
Right.
He had these back-to-back groups of recruits that did quite well. And
That must have been so much a part of building the idea that you're in for the mission, you're in for the what you need to do, and you need to be successful as a group.
You come together. I mean, you have all these guys that obviously no one. You meet the people,
Yeah.
and you gather up some people that you're friendly with and feel comfortable with, and those become your buddies, and you learn quickly who you can trust and who you can't trust, and who has could have your back and not have your back.
Yeah.
So it's a big step, because you get people yelling at you all the time.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get the stuff correct and all, but it was an interesting experience.
Now, after basic, you had to leave, and then where were you assigned?
I went back to Great Lakes for my A school.
Okay.
So basically, I had scored high enough on these tests that I was able to, prior to signing a contract, I got to pick anything that I wanted to. And I wanted to be an electrician. I had that, and I always enjoyed that, so that's what I chose to be an electrician.
Now, was that typical that you?
No, a lot of guys went for boot camp. If they didn't pass high enough on this, then they went to the fleet, and they got assigned to, when you first came aboard ship, if you're not rated, and that's what I was, rated, because I already trained to be an electrician. You're put into a pool of new guys. You go to the laundry, you go to the mess deck, you're given the more undesirable jobs, and you perform that. In your first couple of years in the Navy, you're doing all this really bad grunt work.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate that I came in, and I already had been to A school, which is good. So I did this BEE school, which was a 6-week school. It's basically electricity and electronics.
Yeah.
And then I went to it was 12 or 14 weeks of my A school, and so I came out of there. Was assigned to ship the USS John F. Kennedy, CDA 67.
Yeah, and that was
that was an aircraft carrier, and that was in Norfolk.
Right.
Well, it was in the Mediterranean at the time, but they flew me to Norfolk, and I was temporarily assigned to USS Forrestal, which is CDA 59. So I had gotten there in July 6th or 7th of 72, and got on board the ship, and the third day I was aboard that ship, we were still tied to Pier 12, when somebody, the 10th of July, up in the computer room on an 03 level, decided that they did not want to go out to sea, and the Forrestal was relieving the Kennedy. So I was taking the Kennedy, or the Forrestal to the Kennedy,
Yeah.
then I was going to be transferred to the Kennedy. And this person said a fire. And so my third day aboard the ship, we had a major fire that put the ship, the Forrestal, out of commission.
How frightening is that? Now, what level were you on?
Well, so now I'm aboard ship. I'm assigned to a berthing area that, there was only a few of us in because we were all TAD,
Yeah.
temporary assigned duty. And so I didn't have a GQ station. I was really like kind of a passenger, not doing
Yeah.
anything, but they were mustering people because we were fighting the fire. And I mustered in, and I fought this fire, and it was an interesting experience. So every sailor is a firefighter. You go through firefighting school and training. I had subsequent training after that, but this initial live burn was interesting. They ended up having to cut a hole in the flight deck because the fire was so intense. You kind of wonder what it's a steel ship. What burns? Well, the paint burns, papers burn. There's electrical wires burn. There's a lot of stuff that ignites, and it also makes pretty obnoxious gases.
Yeah.
And so you wear this thing called an OBA. They've done away with those now, but a oxygen breathing apparatus, which is this device that you wear on your chest, and you put a chemical canister into the unit, and you have your face mask on, and this is how you breathe. It makes a chemical reaction. It gets really hot in here, so so
it's scorching your chest.
Well, you can feel it, but it's not, it's insulated enough that it's not burning you. But one of the things it doesn't like to be immersed in water. So you are now aboard a ship that, if anybody's been aboard ship, every rib section, there's usually what they call a knee knocker in many areas of the ship. So this is a perfect place to gather water. So if you go down, you're gonna have a more eruptive chemical reaction.
Ooh.
So it's something you're gonna want to do. So it's you always.
Now, are they telling you this on the fly, or you knew it?
No, I knew this
Okay,
since I already had
okay,
trained with
okay,
this
okay.
material. So I had already been trained somewhat in firefighting in boot camp. I mean, that was one of the things you do. Because you can't call for help, and it's a really good skill to have.
Yeah.
So you learn quickly. One of the things I took away from it is that I can think in bad situations.
Yeah.
and keep my
your
head.
Yeah.
I come afterwards when things come piling, you might say, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah.
But for the most part, you keep it together and you do what you had to do. So that was a tough. That was an interesting.
Now, did the Kennedy end up coming back to get you, or did they take another transport?
No, they flew me over.
Okay.
So the poor Kennedy, it went out. So generally, when you're going to be deployed, these carriers are deployed for like a 6-month period of time, and you go and you do these shakedown cruises to get ready for your deployment. It's usually 2 weeks, and you go down to Gitmo, you go down to around Cuba, and you practice. And you do firefighting drills, you do launches and recoveries, and flight deck crashes, and mechanical, all sorts of different training that you do. You go to your GQ station, general quarter stations, and you do your stuff to protect the ship and learn your skills that you need. So that's all done. So you start really training heavily, within, 6 weeks of deployment, you're doing a lot of stuff. So the Kennedy went out for a 2-week shakedown cruise because they came out of the yards in Portsmouth, Virginia. And you check your mechanical systems and things like that to see if everything is ready and everything's working properly. So they still had like a month to go before they were gonna get deployed, but because of Vietnam and all the things that were going on, it went out for a 2-week shakedown cruise, and the Kennedy came back 9 months later.
Wow.
So they were scheduled to come back early, and they, not early, but you know, they were trying to get them back on time. So they had their 6-month deployment plus another month, so that was like 7 months. And now the Forrestal was down, and so it was extended. So you're when we got there, you know, it's amazing how, you know, you get a ship can get beat up in a period of time like that. But you know, it's just part of the chore and maintenance and things that you got to do. So you know, I got to the ship. I think it was in where were we flying to? Rota, Spain.
Okay.
That's where it was, Rota,
Okay.
Spain. Well, no, let's see. We it was in Mallorca, Spain, an island off of Spain, but we flew into Rota, and we came up through Canada. We came up from, you know, it's funny, you have all these military airports down in Norfolk.
Yeah.
So they drove us up on a bus up to New Jersey. To
Really?
go, yes, to fly out of the Air Force Base in New Jersey. And, you know, I don't know, there were, you know, Oceania, you had all these Navy military bases all over the place, and we had to take a bus up to New Jersey. But anyways, we flew on this plane, we went up to Gandalf, Canada, and we refueled there, and then came over and we went to Germany, and then down to Spain. And
now, am I remembering, two things I think I'm remembering, and you can confirm or deny. One, didn't you build models of both the Kennedy and the Forrestal when you were a kid?
No, but it was the Enterprise.
The Enterprise,
It was the
okay.
Enterprise,
All right, and then
CVA 59.
the other one,
69,
weren't
65.
you were kind of hoping you wouldn't go on a big ship, you wanted to be on like a destroyer?
Yeah, I was-
escort like Dad had?
Yeah, I was thinking more being on a destroyer. That's more
All right.
where I thought.
What
There wasn't
do-
any choice, I remember. They just gave you
Yeah,
the.
all right, what do people who have never been served on an aircraft carrier need to realize about how vast it is? What don't we know?
Well, it's easy to get lost in until you get an understanding of the ship. So basically, the easiest way. So there's like 4 points on the ship that you can go from stern to aft or aft to stern, going pretty much in a straight line. That's on the second deck, that's on the 03 level, it's in the hangar bay, and on the flight deck. So those are the 4 areas that you can go, you can kind of see a destination. Everything else is up a ladder, down a ladder, through a hallway.
Oh, wow, no wonder.
It's so you gotta go vertical, you gotta go horizontal, and you know, so there's a lot of many passageways that are off the ship that aren't on these corridors. But you know, like the mess decks are on the second deck. That's where our compartment was. We were on the second deck. So E division is where I was, and that contained electricians and ice seamen and internal communications. So that was E division. And there's like 120, 130 guys in this compartment. And we did well. But one of the things that so when you get to your first ship, even though you're rated, you can, you know, each command on board the ship has to give up to the ship's benefit, you know, members to the mess decks and things like that. So, you know, even though you've been trained, you might be put in a position like that because that division owes so many personnel to the ship's, you know, laundry or mess deck. But because of there was a few of us, what we did, the stuff that we did when we were still on board and in the yards, when we got to the yards for the forestall, we got these reviews from that personnel. So when we got to our new assignment, we had already proven ourselves
Yeah.
in a very unique situation. So there was a few of us that we didn't have to do any, grunt work.
Okay.
I lucked out. I went right to a shop and I was, put into the power shop and it was, it was a good place to work. And it was, that's an experience of, working in a laundry or working in a mistakes that I didn't need to have.
Yeah.
Because I was an older person too. I had just turned 21. So I was a little older than, the 18-year-old kids
Yeah.
coming in.
That's-
So that was, my
The
skill set
maturity,
was a
yeah.
little bit more.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing. And the Kennedy was a good ship. We saw a lot of good stuff.
Who was your commander at that time?
I remember Captain Dixon. He was the second captain that we had, and I cannot, for the life of me, come up with the first captain.
Do you have when you think back on your time in the Navy, do you have an officer who you would never forget, either in a positive way or maybe not so positive? Either defined leadership or didn't?
No, there was one. Yeah, he was a lieutenant. He was. It was when I was in the reserves, and he was a submariner. I had some. I was assigned to a sub squadron in New London, and he was because it was in a reserve unit. You get to know people even closer, I think.
Yeah.
And so he was. I remember him telling me, like, you think your best day. He went to the academy. You think your best day would be, the day you graduate from the academy and all. He goes, I was so sick. I was out with my girlfriend. We broke up. I got drunk. I was hungover. I threw my hat up in the air, and it was the best fitting hat. And I never found it again. It was just miserable. It was just miserable. But he, he did his time in port subs as an engineering officer and all. And but then he was going to he wanted to become a lawyer, so he was going to Yale to get his law degree, and so he was in the reserves with us at the time. And he was a good guy. It was, we went out a bunch of times.
Now, when you're in your active duty, did you stay in the Mediterranean?
Mostly, and then we went up to the Arctic Circle.
What was that like?
Cold.
Worse than Great Lakes?
Different. But one of the things that I remember, I get a call. I got a call from, it was the bridge, and they have these electric heaters inside the windows that are all along the bridge area, and they're electrically heated so they don't freeze up and maintain visibility.
Yeah.
And so one of them was down, so I went up there to repair that, and was able to fix it. And
what was it like to be up on the bridge?
I had been up there before, but it was pretty neat. But I was out. I was kind of standing and I was looking out, and it's up there. It's always gray. It's it's very. I don't know if I've ever saw the sun shine. It was just always heavily overcast.
Yeah.
And this is like late November is when this was, and I happened to be looking out, and the navigational officer noticed me and came up and he said, well, "What are you looking at?" And I said, "Sir, I don't know. I don't know, but I'm looking out." And I said, "Those can't be. And this is way, way far away." He said, "These aren't icebergs, right?" And he goes, No, we're not in those type of waters. That wouldn't be around here. But look closely." And he's talking me through this. Really look closely, and then pull your eyes back just a little bit from the top of these white things you're looking at, and tell me what you see. And I looked, and it was like I could see that there was a distance between the tops of these white peaks, which I found out were mountains in Norway, and the curvature of the earth. So I was up high enough to see this, and they were like 300 miles, 200 miles. The tops of mountains, and you could see that there was a distance between the top of the mountains and where you could see the curvature.
Neat.
It was one of the neatest experiences.
Wow.
He gave me his binoculars, and I got to see it even closer. But it was
cool.
one of those experiences that were pretty unique.
Yes.
Pretty unique. That was a good experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. How about sailors with whom you served on the Kennedy? Did you stay in touch with any? And
for a while, but then it kind of fell off. I've been meaning to look up, but I haven't. I had some close friends that we were pretty good with, but it just.
Now, did you get off the ship? Did you have an R&R? In
ports? Oh, God, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, what were your favorite ports?
Mallorca, Spain.
Mallorca, yeah.
That was probably
I remember when you.
Yeah, a lot of Scandinavians came down there because it was a beautiful place.
Yeah.
It was sunny.
Yeah. Warm.
And warm. And the booze was cheap.
Okay.
And so it's more expensive up in the northern European area of the continent. And so that was very good. And I get to Greece, I get to Turkey, I get to Italy, get to Spain. Where else did we go? England and Scotland.
You got to Scotland. Now our dad was born in Scotland.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good experience. Edinburgh. We were on the Queen's Ferry. That's where we disembarked. So we were on the fourth or fifth.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, right outside of Edinburgh, and that was neat. And
all right, what is your knowledge now from being in the Navy of different seas and oceans? Is there some? Is there some way you can tell that you've crossed into the Aegean Sea from the Mediterranean, or is there a distinction, or you're inside?
Well, no, when you're out to sea, it's you're staying water and all. But when you get closer to land, you can tell different land formations of what's going on. So that's a better clue. Temperature. You know where you kind of are. Probably one of the we had taken. So a carrier, it moves around obviously, but not as much as like a destroyer would, and the swells and all. A much steadier ship. But and it was up in the Arctic Circle, so we were up there for about 3 weeks. And there was a remnants of a hurricane that had hit the United States and had come up. And so we were in the remnants of this hurricane. And we were in the Arctic Circle. And so this storm was still fairly active, intense. And we were taking water over the flight deck, which is about 90 feet.
Whoa!
And it was we had no flight operations. they stuffed every aircraft they could into the hangar bay, because it was pretty bad. It was a bunch tied,
Yeah.
secured up on the flight deck, but it was not
90 feet. Oh.
yeah, but again, I was up on the bridge, and I was looking down, and they have, usually when you're underway, and there's no flight ops, you have a 2-man aircraft integrity watch is what they call it. And so these guys would be walking around the flight deck, just checking to make sure that the aircraft were all chained down.
Yeah.
So they would do a loop and just police the how the planes were still secured. But because it was so rough and all, they had 9 guys up there.
Oh,
and they
wow.
had a rope between them, so there was
Oh.
about 3 to 5 feet between each guy, and they were all tied together. And what was explained to me was that they felt that if 1 or 2 were getting washed overboard, somebody would get tangled someplace and save everybody. So,
Wow.
so that's why they had everybody
Wow.
tied together.
Whoa.
So
Whoa.
it was like, those are.
Was that a volunteer job?
No, yeah, you and you. And then you guys are gonna go with them. Yeah, that's how you volunteer.
Yeah, that's how you
You and
volunteer.
you, somebody pointing a finger at you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a good thing. But, yeah, we had some fires aboard the ship. You constantly, people, because we were going up to the Arctic Circle, we were doing a NATO exercise. We have a detachment of Marines aboard the ship, and they were going to do some stuff also onshore. We had they brought up a whole bunch of new foul weather gear, for the Arctic conditions and all. And the Storm Masters, space, even though it's a big ship, space is limited.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so much equipment that you have to have. So these guys.
And how many personnel on?
We had about 5,500 people.
Wow.
With the air wing
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
and the basic crew. Basic crew of the carrier was around 4,000, and then with the air wing and all the air wings deployed on that ship, probably up another couple
Wow.
of thousand. And
That's
so
amazing.
you got a lot of people
Yeah.
on board the
Yeah.
ship. So these people are just, they have so many different compartments that they can stuff stuff in. They had this one compartment where they stuffed a whole bunch of the jackets and hats, and gloves and things near where the steam, which was these steam lines that were for the catapults.
Oh.
And they were, well wrapped and all, but, over time and with this stuff on top, there was some degradation to the material, and it allowed the cloth material to come in contact with the steam, which it then cooked it, not the steam itself, but the steam
Yeah.
pipe, and it got enough for it went up to its kindling temperature and caught on fire. And so we had pretty major fire that we had to fight to
Wow.
get this over with. And so when you're in the Navy, like I said before, everybody's a firefighter.
Right.
And nobody else is gonna help you, so you gotta help
Right,
yourself.
yeah.
But afterwards, it was funny because, all this material got taken in, it was, a lot of it was thrown on the to be sorted into the hangar bay and all. And, from then on, this equipment and material that was supposed to stay, everybody grabbed, their share.
Sure.
And people were walking around the ship with all this really foul weather gear stuff on.
Were you able to keep your own bunk, and you didn't share it? You weren't.
No, that's only in the submarine.
Okay.
That you hot bunked.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I have my own little space.
In the Arctic Circle at
Yeah.
that time, Was it only U.S. ships there, or were?
Oh, no, the Russians were flying.
Okay.
They're called bears, and they fly past the ship all the time.
Okay.
They always scramble. So we always have, almost always, the one exception I gotta say was that hurricane thing. We didn't have anybody ready cats. So that means pilots, two pilots, they do like a 4-hour watch in their aircraft.
Uh-huh.
So they're on the catapults, ready to be launched, sitting in their cockpit. Engines are at idle, ready
Yeah.
to go, and just in case they have to be launched. And so these bears come in and they take pictures of us, and we take pictures of them.
Yeah.
It's just a normal thing. We see Russian ships. There was one good. So they'll launch the ready cats, and the planes will escort the bear around. They'll fly one plane above one wing and one plane below the other wing, so they can turn the guy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. But we were underway refueling and store replacement, and we had a Russian cruiser that had been around us for a few days.
Considered harassing, or just?
Kind of coming closer than they're supposed to. But we had other escort ships that pushed them away. But they came after us, and they were following aft. And so now when you're refueling underway, you get another ship, very big ship, that's like 100 feet away, and you get these hoses that are coming over from one ship to the other, aviation fuel and black oil because we're a conventional powered aircraft carrier, the last one, and this Russian cruiser came in and came between us, so we had to do this emergency breakaway where the lines went in the water and we spread out like that, and that kind of pissed off our captain, and rightly so.
Yeah.
It pissed us off, and
So are you spewing fuel in the ocean?
they had emergency shutoffs, and they shut, some spill.
Some stuff, okay.
Some spill. They don't have any clue on what the amount was,
Yeah.
but it was an emergency maneuver we had to do. But, so we have 8 boilers on board ship, and basically underway, you use 4 boilers. I mean, that was enough for keeping the speed.
Yeah.
If you needed another one, you could throw another one on. But, basically they would rotate around the boilers, so you're not putting stress on everything. But I was down in central control, and the captain called for everything. He wanted as much power as he could.
Okay.
And so I was able to, it took us a while, it took us like 30 minutes or more to get up the head of steam that we need, and he put all 8 boilers on, and we got as many, and we passed that cruiser, and we left it in our wake.
Okay.
And I've never seen the ship go that fast. I went to the fantail section, the back end of the ship, and the vibration, it was, and you see these power boats on lakes, like when we have in New Hampshire, with a cattail going up, and we had one. No, I mean, it was huge, but it was the most water I've seen turning out the back of the ship, and that was a neat experience.
That we
did that. So.
All right, how long did you spend in the reserves? Was it total 6 years? Or?
Yeah, 6
okay.
years.
2 on and 4 in reserve?
Yeah.
And so on, and did that have an influence on your life, do you think?
I mean, it was, it was a good experience. It was funny because, so we had a, during the summer, we had one Sunday, so we were on the USS Fulton, which was in New London. It was a AS 13, AS 14. It was a submarine tender, and so usually there was 2 to 3 submarines tied to it,
Yeah.
and you know we worked on submarines and all, but we had a Independence Day, so we had a picnic there,
Yeah.
and all, and one of the things that we did, you know, so wives and girlfriends and
Yeah.
kids would come, and so we had we took them on a tour of the submarine, and so I think she was still my girlfriend at the time. Linda was,
Yeah.
girlfriend. We went on board the submarine, and we were, you know, they were showing us around, and you know, so it's an interesting thing coming down into a submarine because it's a vertical ladder, so she's not great on heights. And, you know, so it took a little effort to get her down into the boat, and so they were showing us around, and next thing you hear is they went to general quarters because, again, we had a fire.
Oh, no,
Fire
no.
in the laundry.
Oh.
And so the way you fight the fire on board a submarine is different than you do because you have the ability to do this. So there's lines that are overhead. You can plug in. So you don't have to put this OBA on. You can have a mast with a hose that you can plug in. And so what they try to do is once everybody's on this air supply, they can isolate and suck out the air and smother the fire, help smother the fire. So you don't want to be smothered, so you want to be breathing. So you know, I'm talking to this table and I'm telling them, okay, this is what I'm going to do if, you know, if it comes to this worst scenario, because you know, a lot of civilians and then not sure what to do.
Right.
So I'm kind of barking at these people. Okay, this is what we're going to do. How we're going to maintain it. We're going to listen to these people because it's their boat. They know what they're, you know. And so afterwards, in the tour that I was on was my commanding officer, and he had come over and goes, "Wow, you did that pretty good." And he didn't recognize me because at the time you could. This was in the 70s, and you could wear a wig. So I had longer hair than a proper a full-time sailor would have, and so I'm kind of looking more like a civilian than somebody that had some information. So he was impressed with how I handled the thing, and then I sir. Okay. So it was an interesting moment in time that we exchanged, but it was so my third day on board the first ship I was on, we caught on fire. First time I brought my future wife to be on it caught on fire. Basically little thing, but basically it could turn into a pretty big fire. But it was all in all, you do your job. When you're underway, this is what I don't think a lot of people understand is you do 2 watches a day. So you do 2 4-hour watches a day. Plus, during the day, if you're not on watch, you're doing your work. So you muster, you get down to your workstation, you're there before 8, you have breakfast and get up before around 6, and that stuff. But so if you have like a 0800 watch, that's what you would assume. You get there about 15 minutes early, and you relieve that person, and then so from 0800 to 1200 hours, you do your watch. So one of my watches was a switchboard, which you bring on and off generators, and you're producing the electricity that the ship runs on. So, so generally there's 3 main switchboards on board the ship. So there's 3 sailors that are electricians, mate, that are down working 2 so there's 6 generators, 2 per switchboard, and then you have the 400 cycle special area that isn't manned. So you do your watch there, and then you go back to your shop, and you work again.
Yeah.
But then you have it at 8 o'clock at night. You're going to do another 4 hours. So now you're not getting to bed until after midnight. And then you got to get up at 6, and then you start your day, and then it advances. So the next watch you would have would be at 1,200 hours to 4 or 1,600, and so you're working around the clock. But then that next morning you're up at midnight, and then the next night you're up at 0400, and so your sleep is always disrupted.
Yeah.
You're always kind of, when you're underway, and this is what makes it, why you go into these ports, because when you're underway for a while,
you have no sense of night and day.
Yeah. So like the longest period of time that we were out for over 60 days. This was during 1973, during the one of the Israeli Arab wars. And what we were doing, we were in the middle of the Mediterranean for a while, little past Italy. We were landing aircraft on our aircraft carrier that we were giving to the Israelis. So they were losing a lot of aircraft. So I don't know how much the public ever knew about this.
Yeah.
I don't know how much was ever written, but we were supplying aircraft to the Israelis. So they would land at night on our carrier. We would refuel them, rearm them, and they would fly to Israel. We'd land, our pilots would come back, and the aircraft would stay there, and but all set to go. And then my oldest son's boss was an Israeli. This is the first guy that Aaron worked for. Was in the Israeli Air Force, and I had told him this. I remember that, because when those aircraft were coming in, I was assigned to the crew that we were taking off the tail hooks, because we didn't need that additional weight, so we could put more arms on the aircraft. So here's this guy that was in this conflict, and it's and whatever. So we were out for a real long time, and we finally got to Port of Call of Athens, and we were up in this area that it was below where the government buildings were, and it was in a bazaar. We called it the can't think of the name of it. Shoot. I just fell on my brain. And we're having coffee or having a beer or having something, but we heard some noise. This was like the first day after being out for 60 days that we got ashore, and we ended up hearing this noise and kind of seeing some activity, and people were running down from where the government buildings were, and then the shore patrol came around and was saying that everybody need back to the ship, and we found out that they were having a coup. So the guy that was in charge was, prior to this, everybody in Greece was named Papadopoulos, and that was who the president or the prime minister of Greece was, but he got overthrown. So, subsequently, anybody who had the name Papadopoulos used something else. They wanted to be known as a Papadopoulos. So We ended up having to go back and leave
Oh.
because they were having a coup, but we saw tanks.
Oh, my
There was a
God.
whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it was just like, what the heck?
I'm here in history, I don't wanna be, I just wanna be on Charlie.
I want a beer.
I want a beer. Give me
Yeah.
that, yeah.
So it was, so that was a strange thing.
Yeah.
And we had another strange thing. I think this was still in '73. We were in Cannes, France. We were going to, I bought tickets, this was,
Yeah.
we got to go see the race at Monte Carlo.
Oh,
So that was
nice,
another
yeah.
thing. We went to Monte Carlo. Had a great time, but when we were anchoring off the coast of France, near Cannes, we had a new first lieutenant, and that's what they call he's in charge of the deck division. And so the deck division, anchors and secures the ship to pairs, and they're bosun's mates, is the easiest way. So anyways, we were anchoring, and so, obviously, an aircraft carrier anchor is pretty big.
Yeah.
And the links on an aircraft carrier chain are pretty big. And each one is like 2 tons.
Oh.
Each link is 2
Oh,
tons.
oh.
I mean, it's a massive piece of equipment. So you got this thing called an anchor windlass. And so that's kind of geared, and it lets out the chain.
Yeah.
And you can tension this so when the chain is free falling, you want it to free fall to pull the chain out of the chain locker, but you don't want it to be uncontrolled, because
Yeah.
once things are in motion, they tend to stay in motion.
Yeah.
That's-
Newton said something about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
little physics. And so this newest lieutenant, saw that so what you have up there is you have a group of electricians that are up there because of the electrical
Yeah.
needs that are going on there. And machinist mates who are controlling this equipment, but the bosun's mate are doing the other stuff. And when they let go of the anchor, this one machinist mate was pulling back on he was doing his job, trying to
Yeah.
have the chain fall out at the rate that
Yeah.
it needed to fall out. And his first lieutenant took objection to him, and he goes, "Captain said to anchor this, and he wanted to be right on target." And this is something you always do, that when the host country tells you to,
Yeah.
park your boat here,
You
you want to
park,
park
yeah.
your boat exactly where they tell you to show our seamanship. And so that was highly, always sought after. So the anchor was going, and he told this guy to let go of the brake. Okay, and he let go of the brake, and then the chain started to come out and continued to come out and got faster and faster with momentum, and it continued to go out. And now this thing that is arcing and going down a hose pipe out the front of the ship, because we had one on the port side and the front of the bow section. It was kind of unique. Most of the time they're starboard and port, but this was port and front of the carrier. And it just kept coming and coming and coming, and now everybody's saying, let's get the freak out of here, because they're color coded too. So every so many, after a while, there's so many feet that are out, they paint a link and it tells you how much chain you have out.
Okay, yeah.
And then it comes
So,
up, so
yeah.
you have a kind of an idea of how much chain
Yeah.
is out. Now you're coming up with the warning that you got too much chain out. And so they're trying to hold this thing back, and there's nothing holding it. And so what happened was, it's attached into the chain locker to a bulkhead somehow that I never saw. And it ripped that out, it came up, and it flipped, the end of the chain flipped around, and the forecastle up forward, and then went out the house pipe, and nobody got killed, nobody got hurt, but people were really close to biting the bullet on that one. And we never did see that first lieutenant again.
You know, I just want to, before we said,
Yeah.
whatever happened to the guy who set the fire in Norfolk?
He's probably still in Portsmouth Naval Prison.
Oh, okay, okay.
Up in New Hampshire.
All right, so when people say to you, Joe, thank you for your service, how do you feel?
I wasn't thanked for my service until I was probably about 48, and we were at a Boy Scout. My two sons were Boy Scouts, and we were at some type of meeting, and there was a group that kind of they dress as Native Americans, Indians, and
Yeah.
they do powwows and they do things. It's part of the Boy Scouts. It's a traditional, trying to keep the culture alive deal. And afterwards, they came around and asked anybody who was a veteran, please come forward. So it was a lot of us, our sons that were involved that were veterans. So we all kind of, we didn't know what was going on, and we kind of stood forward, and these guys came around and thanked you for our service. And that was the first time.
Wow.
That I was ever thanked for my service, because Vietnam just did a number.
Yeah.
That was not a well-liked adventure that we did, and it was sad. I mean, that's one of the reasons. Like when I was with my friends, when I was in the service, he's in the service, because everybody is, long-haired and, but there was a look, there was a 60s and 70s look.
Yeah.
And boy, when you didn't have any hair,
Yeah.
you stood out. You
Exactly.
stood out.
Exactly.
And, people were not kind, I would say.
Yeah.
We weren't at fault for having us involved in Vietnam. A lot of people to blame, because all the way back to the Eisenhower administration.
Yeah.
And before that, it goes back to when we allowed the English to rearm the Japanese to keep the French in Indochina in control until the French could come back after the war to take over French Indochina again. I mean, it was bad. And I always, people who sacrificed themselves should always be looked on as heroes and people that deserve our thanks and appreciation. Wounded veterans and all, they did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
As a country, we did. We should have been more gracious.
Yeah.
I think we've learned that.
Yeah.
But it was a hard lesson.
That was a hard lesson. Well, Joe Rollo, thank you so much for your time, and this was wonderful to see you again.
Yeah.
Much younger brother.